If you've been watching the MLB playoffs this year, you probably noticed a team with so much talent that they look more like an all-star team than a regular MLB team, and yes, of course, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers, a team with the best baseball player on the planet. Some say he's the new GOAT. Shohei Ohtani, a man who is doing things no one alive has ever witnessed, and the only player comparable would have to be the legend himself, Babe Ruth. Then there's future Hall of Famers and elite players all over the roster. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Teoscar Hernandez, Will Smith, Max Muncy, along with an amazing pitching staff with the likes of Blake Snell, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, and of course, Ohtani himself. And there's more amazing talent in the bullpen like Roki Sasaki and Blake Trinan, and a future Hall of Famer in Clayton Kershaw. But even though this amazing team won the NL West, their 93 win total forced them to play in the Wild Card Series, so even if they win it all, I'm not sure I'd put them in the top 15 all time. For today's list, I'll be considering the quality of the roster, regular season performance, and postseason performance. But the 2025 Dodgers did dominate the Reds, Phillies, and Brewers without many issues. And without a doubt, this team, as well as many other recent Dodger teams, have been stacked beyond belief and will be remembered as some of the most loaded rosters ever. But for today's video, I'm going to rank the top 15 MLB teams to exist going back to the inaugural World Series in 1903 with one key rule. To be considered among the greatest teams to ever exist, the team has to have won a World Series. If you fell short of the championship, how can you be considered a top all-time team? Even if you're loaded with talent, to be an all-time great team, a team has to find a way to win in October and be the last team standing. If we only focused on stacked teams that dominated in the regular season, well, there's the 2001 Seattle Mariners, who won 116 games but lost to the Yankees 4-1 in the ALCS. Then the 1906 Cubs, one of the most impressive teams ever assembled, consisting of 4 future Hall of Famers, and they won 116 games with an unbelievable 763 win-loss percentage in the regular season. But in one of the greatest upsets in baseball history, the crosstown Chicago White Sox, known as the Hitless Wonders for their pathetic .230 team batting average, took out the Cubs 4-2. But let's go back to the Dodgers one more time before getting into the top 15, because they do deserve an honorable mention for the 2020 team, who did win a World Series title, although I don't think I can put them on the main list since it happened in a COVID-shortened 60-game season. But they went 43-17 with an insane 717 win-loss percentage, and they tore through the expanded 2020 playoffs, sweeping the Brewers and Padres, then taking out the powerful Braves in a competitive NLCS before taking out the Rays in the World Series. They had an incredible roster with Corey Seager, Will Smith, Cody Bellinger, and Mookie Betts, and an unstoppable rotation with Kershaw, Julio Urias, Walker Buehler, and a probable future Hall of Famer in Kenley Jansen closing out games. I give the Dodgers full credit for their 2020 championship, but since it was just a 60-game season, I wouldn't quite put them in the top 15 all time, but they do deserve a mention. So now let's get in to the top 15. Number 15, the 1986 New York Mets. One of the craziest yet most formidable teams ever assembled was the 1986 Mets, who were defined by a potent combination of dominant starting pitching featuring Doc Gooden, Ron Darling, and Bob Ojeda, along with a well-balanced offense with power and speed. The lineup had Darryl Strawberry in his prime, 11-time Gold Glover Keith Hernandez, who had an on-base percentage of .413 that year, Hall of Famer Gary Carter in the squad, and a future MVP in the young Kevin Mitchell. They also had 2 dominant closers to choose from, Roger McDowell and Jesse Orosco. The 2 combined to save 43 games. This 108-win Mets team were known for being wild and rambunctious, but they were great at baseball, and they never gave up. Their resiliency and determination was on national display in the World Series when they made the most memorable comeback in MLB history in Game 6 of the World Series, followed by a final W in Game 7. Number 14, the 1989 Oakland Athletics. This was one of the first teams that came to mind when thinking about this video, as I was a young fan in 1989, absolutely blown away by the A's roster. They had the Bash brothers, Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco, the best leadoff hitter and base runner of all time in Ricky Henderson, a hitting machine in Carney Lansford, the powerful Dave Henderson, and even the Cobra, the Hall of Famer Dave Parker, and the rotation was unbelievable. Dave Stewart, Mike Moore, Bob Welch, and Storm Davis. These four guys averaged 19 wins each that year, and the bullpen had 6 pitchers with a sub-3 ERA, including, of course, the closer, Hall of Famer Dennis Eckersley. Going into the World Series, I was excited as a Giants fan, but also terrified, and for good reason. The A's swept the Giants, and the only resistance from San Francisco came in the form of a massive earthquake, which only delayed the inevitable. Number 13, the 1942 St. Louis Cardinals. The 42 Cardinals were a fundamentally sound team characterized by exceptional pitching, speed, and strong defense rather than raw power. They could still hit though, and even though no one in the lineup hit more than 13 home runs, the Cardinals led the league in hits, doubles, and triples. The lineup featured 2 future Hall of Famers and a 21-year-old rookie named Stan Musial and an established superstar, Enos Slaughter, along with a future MVP in Marty Marion. Half of their starting lineup was in the All-Star game. The National League MVP that year was also on the team. In the rotation, pitcher Mort Cooper went 22-7 with a 1.78 ERA, and behind him in the rotation was Johnny Beasley, who went 21-6 with a 2.13 ERA. And by the way, in second place for the MVP that year, Enos Slaughter, who led the league in hits and triples. It was one of the most dominant teams in MLB history, and it was Branch Rickey's final year as GM of the Cardinals. He left with a bang as they crushed the Yankees in the Fall Classic 4-1. Number 12, the 1905 New York Giants. Managed by Hall of Famer John McGraw, the 1905 Giants were known for a dominant and aggressive style of play, focusing on strong pitching, sound defense, and aggressive base running. They went 105-38, a .686 win-loss percentage. Their hitters led the league in batting average, home runs, RBIs, stolen bases, on-base percentage, slugging, and OPS. They had future Hall of Famer Roger Bresnahan as their catcher, the amazing Mike Donlin, who batted .356, and the speedy Art Devlin, who led the league with 59 steals. Their rotation was also elite, anchored by the legendary Christy Mathewson, who went 31-9 with a 1.28 ERA. 3 pitchers, Mathewson, Joe McGinty, and Red Ames, won more than 20 games. And here's a wild fact about very early 20th century baseball. This team used a total of 6 pitchers all season long, and that's counting starters and relievers. Number 11, the 1932 New York Yankees. This team just missed out on the top 10 because a similar version from a few years prior had the better record and is the more iconic team, but the 32 Yankees were just as stacked, with 6 of their 8 position players now in the Hall of Fame: Bill Dickey, Tony Lazzeri, Joe Sewell, Earl Combs, Lou Gehrig, and of course, Babe Ruth. 5 hitters in their lineup got MVP votes that season. As far as their rotation, 3 of 5 are now in Cooperstown: Lefty Gomez, Red Ruffing, and Herb Pennock. As a team, their pitchers led the league in strikeouts by a wide margin, and their hitters led the league in on-base percentage and were second in homers to the Philadelphia A's, a team that was pretty stacked themselves that year with Jimmy Fox and Al Simmons. Number 10, the 1970 Baltimore Orioles. The 1970 Orioles were a World Series team built on dominant starting pitching, exceptional defense, and balanced power hitting. Their rotation was a thing of beauty and featured 3 20-plus game winners: Jim Palmer, Mike Cuellar, and Dave McNally, who combined to win 68 games, and incredibly, all 3 finished in the top 5 for the Cy Young. Their pitching staff led all of baseball with a 3.15 ERA. The 1970 MVP was also an Oriole that season, and it was Boog Powell, who hit .297 with 35 bombs. The lineup also featured Hall of Famers Frank Robinson and the human vacuum cleaner Brooks Robinson, who won a Gold Glove that year, as did Paul Blair and Davey Johnson. Also, 2 future superstars made their debuts with the 1970 Orioles: Don Baylor and Bobby Grich. This unstoppable team swept the Twins in the ALCS, then beat the Reds 4-1 in the Fall Classic. Number 9, the 1929 Philadelphia Athletics. Led by Connie Mack, the 29 Athletics were a powerful team built on a dominant pitching staff and a formidable lineup of sluggers. 4 future Hall of Famers, Lefty Grove, Jimmy Fox, Al Simmons, and Mickey Cochran, anchored the team. Simmons led the league with 157 RBIs and he crushed 34 homers, while Jimmy Fox hit .354 with 33 bombs. Another key hitter was Mulhouse, who hit .313 with 16 homers and 82 RBIs. Lefty Grove, who won 20 games and led the league in strikeouts and ERA, was the star of the rotation, but it was George Earnshaw with the most wins, going 24-8. Their pitching staff led all of baseball in ERA, strikeouts, wins, and even saves, thanks to solid relievers like Bill Shores and Eddie Rommel. The Athletics had no trouble with the Cubs in the World Series, winning it 4-1. Number 8, the 1998 New York Yankees. The 98 Yankees were built around a balanced offense, a top-tier starting rotation, and a dominant bullpen. The offense relied on consistent hitting and scoring runs rather than a single home run hitter. Every single batter hit double-digit homers, and 8 of the 9 hit at least 17, with no one hitting over 30, an extraordinary balance of power throughout the lineup. Bernie Williams won a batting title with a .339 average, and he also won a Gold Glove. Paul O'Neill drove in 116 runs that season with 24 bombs, while Hall of Famer Derek Jeter hit .324, leading the league in runs scored. They also got contributions from stars like Darryl Strawberry, Chili Davis, and Hall of Famer Tim Raines. The pitching staff, backed by a lockdown bullpen, had the league's lowest team ERA. They had Andy Pettitte, David Wells, David Cone, and of course Mariano Rivera closing out games. The team had 5 Hall of Famers in total, and unsurprisingly, they tore through the playoffs and swept the Padres in the World Series. Number 7, the 1984 Detroit Tigers. Up next, we have the '84 Tigers, whose skills were characterized by a powerful up-the-middle defense, a balanced offense that led MLB in home runs and runs scored, and a formidable pitching staff featuring the amazing closer Willie Hernandez, who made an MLB best 80 appearances and 60 finishes, including 32 saves. He won both the Cy Young Award and MVP with a 1.92 ERA out of the bullpen. The starting pitching was not too shabby either, with Hall of Famer Jack Morris at the top of the rotation going 19-11, while Dan Petrie and Milt Wilcox won 18 and 17 games respectively. The lineup was no joke either. Catcher Lance Parrish crushed 33 homers with 98 RBIs, and he won a Gold Glove as well with his amazing defensive abilities behind the dish. Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell, one of the best second base shortstop combos in MLB history, both won Gold Gloves. The lineup also featured sluggers Kirk Gibson, Darrell Evans, Howard Johnson, and Chet Lemon. It was a lineup you couldn't pitch around. The team's balanced talent across all positions resulted in a 104-58 regular season record and a wire-to-wire division lead, culminating in a World Series championship, all under Hall of Fame manager Sparky Anderson. Number 6, the 1907 Chicago Cubs. Remember the 1906 Cubs I talked about earlier, who won 116 games in the regular season only to lose in the World Series? Well, they tried again in 1907, and although they didn't win quite as many games in the regular season, this time they won it all. The 1907 Cubs pitching staff put up numbers that will likely never be seen again. They were exceptionally effective, leading the National League in several key categories, including an absolutely unbelievable ERA of 1.73 as an entire team. Their starters threw a total of 30 shutouts, including 8 by their ace, Orval Overall, who went 23-7 with a 1.68 ERA. Their entire rotation had ERAs under 2, including Hall of Famer three-finger Mordecai Brown, who went 20-6 with a 1.39 ERA, but the best ERA belonged to Jack Feaster, who sported a 1.15 ERA, allowing just 25 runs in 195 innings. The lineup is mostly remembered for 3 Hall of Famers, made famous by the 1910 poem Tinker to Evers to Chance. Joe Tinker, Johnny Evers, and Frank Chance turned double plays together for a decade, and in 1907, they were in their primes. The Cubs lineup was not powerful or overly intimidating, but they were opportunistic and effective at producing runs with their aggression and speed. 5 members of the starting lineup stole at least 20 bases. The 1907 Cubs were second in MLB in steals and third in sack bunts, but they knew with the pitching staff they had, usually 1 or 2 runs was more than enough to win the game. In the World Series against Detroit, Game 1 ended in a tie due to darkness. Then the Cubs swept the next 4 games, with their pitchers allowing just 3 runs. Number 5, the 1939 New York Yankees. The 39 Yankees showcased a dominant combination of exceptional hitting, standout pitching, and strong defense, leading them to their 4th consecutive World Series title and the best record of any team during this dynasty, 106-45, a .702 win-loss percentage. 1939 was the year Joe DiMaggio had his first MVP season, hitting .381 with 30 home runs, but he wasn't the only threat in the lineup. 6 of the 8 regulars made the All-Star team, including Red Rolfe, who led the league with 213 hits and 139 runs scored. Outfielder Charlie Keller hit .334, catcher Bill Dickey smashed 24 home runs, and second baseman Joe Gordon hit 28 bombs with 111 RBIs. As a team, they led the big leagues in runs, home runs, RBIs, on-base percentage, slugging, and OPS. 2 Hall of Famers were in the rotation as well. Red Ruffing, who went 21-7 with a 2.93 ERA, and Lefty Gomez, a little past his prime but still effective, going 12-8 with a 3.41 ERA. The Yankees won it all that year, sweeping the Reds, and the season was dedicated to Lou Gehrig, who played in only 8 games that year before retiring due to an illness, later diagnosed as ALS. Number 4, the 1909 Pittsburgh Pirates. No World Series champion has had a better win-loss percentage during the regular season than the 1909 Pittsburgh Pirates, who went 110-42, a .724 win-loss percentage. They had strong leadership under Hall of Fame player and manager Fred Clark, who was still playing and led the league in walks that season. But their best hitter was Hall of Fame shortstop Honus Wagner, who excelled in hitting, fielding, and base running. He had a monster season, hitting .339 with 39 doubles, 100 RBIs, and a .909 OPS, all good enough to lead the league. As a team, they led the league in doubles, triples, and were second in home runs. The 1909 Pirates were incredibly aggressive, and aside from the catcher, no one in the lineup stole less than 16 bases. Wagner and Clark stole more than 30 each, but it was their pitching that made them so unbeatable. They had Hall of Famer Vic Willis, who went 22-11 with a 2.24 ERA, but even better that year was Howie Kamnitz, who went 25-6 with a 1.62 ERA. Lefty Layfield was also elite, going 19-8 with a 2.37 ERA, and then there was a young Babe Adams, pitching as a starter and reliever, going 12-3 with a 1.11 ERA. Their starters threw 21 shutouts, and no pitcher on the staff who appeared in more than 3 games had an ERA over 2.83. The Tigers gave the Pirates some resistance in the World Series behind Ty Cobb and an incredible roster of their own, and the Pirates' rotation suddenly started to struggle, but rookie Babe Adams saved the day by winning 3 games, all complete games including a shutout, with a 1.33 ERA, and the Pirates won the series in 7. Number 3, the 1975-76 Cincinnati Reds. The mid-70s Cincinnati Reds, known as the Big Red Machine, were characterized by a powerful offensive lineup, strong pitching depth, and a stellar defense. A key move that sparked the team's success was manager Sparky Anderson shifting Pete Rose to third base in May of 1975. Which allowed the Great 8 lineup to form. Catcher Johnny Bench, Hall of Famer. Tony Perez, first base, Hall of Famer. Joe Morgan, second base, Hall of Famer. Pete Rose, third base. The Hit King should be in the Hall of Fame. Shortstop, borderline Hall of Famer, 9-time All-Star, 5-time Gold Glover Dave Concepcion. And in the outfield, a young Ken Griffey Sr., a 4-time Gold Glover, Cesar Geronimo, and a future MVP in George Foster. The pitching staff didn't have any huge superstars, but there were no weak links either. The entire rotation had double-digit wins and respectable ERAs, including Don Gullett, who went 15-4 with a 2.4 ERA with 8 complete games and 3 shutouts in 1975. No regular from the bullpen had an ERA over 3, and Raleigh Eastwick led the league in saves. The Reds swept the Pirates in the 75 NLCS, then beat Boston to take home the championship. And the same lineup returned in 1976, with Joe Morgan winning the MVP, Pete Rose leading the league in hits, and George Foster leading the league in RBIs. 7 of 8 position players made the All-Star team. Pitcher Pat Zachary won the Rookie of the Year, and the Reds won it all again, sweeping the powerful New York Yankees. Number 2, the 1961 New York Yankees. When thinking about the 61 Yankees, 2 players come to mind immediately: Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. in the chase to break Babe Ruth's single-season record of 60 home runs. They were known as the M&M Boys, and that season they were both neck and neck in home runs and in the MVP voting, with Maris winning the award and Mantle finishing second. Of course, it was Maris who broke the record, crushing 61 homers, and he also led the league in runs, RBIs, and total bases, while Mantle led the league in walks and slugging, and he hit .317 with 54 home runs and 128 RBIs. But they were not the only ones helping the Yankees win games in 1961. The lineup included 6 All-Stars. First baseman Bill Moose Skowron crushed 28 home runs. Catcher Elston Howard hit .348 with 21 homers, and Hall of Famer Yogi Berra was still there, having moved to the outfield at age 36, and he smashed 22 homers of his own. Even the backup catcher Johnny Blanchard smashed 21 bombs in just 275 at-bats with a .305 average. This team set an MLB record with 240 homers as a team, a record that stood until the steroid era. Whitey Ford anchored the rotation, going 25-4 with a 3.21 ERA, winning the Cy Young Award. Bill Stafford and Ralph Terry were also excellent, and reliever Luis Arroyo led the league in saves and appearances, finishing off 54 games with a 2.19 ERA. Whitey Ford dominated in the Fall Classic, winning the World Series MVP, and the 1961 Yankees won it all, 4-1 over the Reds. Number 1, the 1927 New York Yankees. But coming in at number 1 has to be Murderers Row. The 27 Yankees were absolutely stacked with talent and had a lineup that included Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig in their primes. Gehrig won the MVP that year, hitting .373 with a league-leading 52 doubles and 173 RBIs, along with 47 bombs. Babe Ruth, meanwhile, broke his own MLB record by smashing 60 home runs. Over half the lineup hit over 300, including Bob Musial at .337 and Hall of Famer Earl Combs at .356. Another Hall of Famer, Tony Lazzeri, hit .309 with 18 homers and 102 RBIs. As a team, they led the league in homers, RBIs, walks, batting average, on-base percentage, slugging, and OPS. The ace of the rotation was Waite Hoyt, a Hall of Famer who went 22-7 with a 2.63 ERA. The rest of the rotation was also fantastic, featuring Herb Pennock and Urban Shocker. When bullpen help or a spot starter was needed, a 30-year-old rookie named Wilcie Moore, who spent a decade in the minors and independent leagues, came through, going 19-7 with a league-leading 2.28 ERA and 13 saves. As a team, their pitching led the league in ERA. They were without weaknesses, and in the World Series, they swept the Pirates, outscoring them 23-10. And so the 27 Yankees have to come in at number 1 on today's list as the greatest MLB team to exist. And yes, 5 of the 15 teams are Yankees teams. I thought about not repeating teams, but how could I leave off the 61 team or the 98 team for that matter? So I decided to just rank every team individually, even repeating franchises. Although I did use 2 years for the Reds, 75 and 76, because those teams were essentially the same team. So let me know your thoughts on today's list. What other stacked teams should I have mentioned? And what do you think of the current Los Angeles Dodgers, an apparent dynasty in the making? They are absolutely stacked, and if by the time you're watching this they won the World Series, do you think they should be added to the list? I'm thinking probably not based on the regular season, but they are definitely one of the scariest teams ever, and who knows what's in store for next year. Thanks so much for checking out the video, and we'll talk to y'all in the next one.